What's going on, Celtics fans? I have two major topics I want to discuss with you today on Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I am Allie Barefoot, and first I want to talk about is it just me, or does anybody else feel like it's the Boston Celtics versus everybody? Not just the Indiana Pacers, but if they blow out a team, everybody's going to say they have a clear and easy path to the finals. If they win in overtime, well, it looks like they choked and they should have dominated. Feels like you can't seem to please anybody right now, but I do want to give the Celtics the credit they deserve and also talk about what they need to change ahead of Game 2 because it was not picture perfect, and personally, I think they should have avoided an overtime win with the Indiana Pacers, but Game 2 preview coming up on the back half of the show. First things first, I just want to give the Boston Celtics some love. I know you guys do too. If you're proud of the Boston Celtics for taking Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals, for showing up in the clutch, for dominating and several areas of that ball game, go on ahead and spam your shams down in the comments section below, because I know there were a lot of questions heading into Game 1 versus the Indiana Pacers, and personally, I think those questions were answered. Yes, I do think this was probably the first real test in the playoffs that we have had to see the Boston Celtics compete in. They had to do an overtime. They had to come back from a deficit. They had leads. They blew it. But this is their second game within less than 10 points. They have won or lost since April 11th. The Celtics proved they can show up in the clutch. They didn't prove that against Atlanta in the regular season. They came out on top, and you can say, oh, well, the Pacers choked. The Pacers had too many turnovers. Yeah, that's true. But the Celtics also didn't give up, and they really showed out here in overtime. Plus, not to mention Jayson Tatum showed out in overtime. We saw this tweet here said that Jayson Tatum's 10 points in OT is the most for any player in a playoff game since 2021. And I will talk about Jayson Tatum in the fourth quarter, how it wasn't his best performance, but he came back, he showed out, and he helped his team with a huge three in transition, albeit a wide open three, but he really was momentum turner here for the Boston Celtics in overtime, but nobody's satisfied. Everybody was expecting a blowout, but if it was a blowout, everybody was saying the Celtics had the easiest path to get to the finals. They're never satisfied, and by they, I do mean that national media outlets are talking about whether or not the Boston Celtics have what it takes to win the Eastern Conference Finals here and compete for the NBA Finals. I want to talk about one quote here in particular. Stephen A. Smith from ESPN said, "I'm disgusted with them because I think their offense looks awful." Is Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown going to answer the call? Quite frankly, I'm going to have to disagree with Stephen A. Smith. I think their offense was excellent in Game 1. I think they had a lot of mistakes. I think that they let the lead go a few times. I think too many turnovers. There are several things the Celtics didn't do well, but let me talk about if Tatum and Brown, the duo of the Jays, are going to answer the call. 36 and 26 points, a double-double, which Jayson Tatum has been averaging this postseason. On top of that, 12 for 26 from the field. Not the best here for Tatum, but his three-point shot also hasn't really been falling this postseason like I wanted to, but still 2 for 8. And let me tell you, that came in the most clutch time. But if you want to talk about clutch, let's talk about Mr. Clutch. 1 for 4 from downtown for Jaylen Brown, and we all know where that one three-pointer happened. I want to talk about Jayson Tatum. This was a picture of his monumental three up against the Indiana Pacers in overtime. JT said, big-time players make big-time plays. That's exactly what he did when the Celtics needed most, and he went on to score 10 points in overtime. Another huge play for the Boston Celtics came from another big-time player, Jaylen Brown. This is the only three that he did make, and boy, was it somewhere out there. A higher power was looking down on the Boston Celtics in TD Garden, and he made probably, arguably, the best three-point shot his entire career. He said game's not over until the final buzzer sounds, and that's how he played. We all know what happened. The rest is history. Another player that's not getting the credit that he nearly deserves is Jrue Holiday. Jaylen Brown said he's the reason why we won this game. A season-high 28 points. He locked up Tyrese Halliburton, not to mention. I'm going to talk about that in our Game 2 preview, but Holiday was phenomenal on both sides of the ball. Big-time player showed out in big-time plays. And like I said, it was not the prettiest win. There were 2 double-digit leads blown. Celtics have been known to do that. 14 turnovers. Yeah, it wasn't as bad as the 21 turnovers the Pacers had, but still, 14? Come on, guys. You're better than that. Honestly, it looked like that sometimes they were literally just handing them the ball. It wasn't even a turnover. It wasn't a bad pass. It was literally just, here you go. It looked weird. But the Celtics will need to make a statement in Game 2. not just to the Pacers, but I guess now they got to prove themselves to the media. So ultimately, I think the Celtics did not escape Game 1. I think they earned Game 1. They could have rolled over. They could have not forced it into overtime. They could have completely given up, but they kept pushing. And the Indiana Pacers are a very good NBA team. They beat the number 3 team in the Eastern Conference. They beat the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. And now everybody's saying, well, they just won because of the injuries. The Pacers are a phenomenal basketball team. I think the Celtics earned a win in TD Garden for Game 1. Overall, there were several big plays by big-time players in Game 1. Name your favorite play of the Celtics' Game 1 win versus the Indiana Pacers down below. And I do want to tell you guys my keys to victory here ahead of Game 2 because it's going to be a grueling matchup. Before I do that, I want you guys to go on ahead and go to PrizePicks, the #1 daily fantasy sports app in America right now. I'm playing it, and here's why. It is so much fun, and it looks just so aesthetically easy to play as well. All you have to do is pick more or less on a player's projected stats. I wish I was kidding. That is literally all you have to do. It takes less than 60 seconds to win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. I decided to combine my picks. I got WNBA and NBA postseason. There are several sports categories you guys can choose from, and collegiate and professional players. You guys can go to the MLB, NHL, even Call of Duty, but I'm focusing on WNBA. Caitlin Clark to have more than 19.5 points. The Fever still looking for their first win, and Anthony Edwards to have more than 3.5 boards. He has been unreal in the postseason so far. If you guys want to copy my prize picks, all good with that, or you can make your own. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Use that promo code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's truly that easy to watch yourself win some real money in real time. The Boston Celtics are moving on, though, to Game 2. Of course, this one will also be in TD Garden. Joe Mazzulla addressed the media here ahead of Game 2, and he said, "We did what we had to do in this one," talking about Game 1. And the next one is going to be a different story because, unfortunately, the Celtics in the postseason so far don't have the best track record of Game 2s, and they really, really need to show out here against the Pacers in this Game 2 scenario because they lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They lost to the Miami Heat, and it was statement losses. They were blown out by 10, 20 points. You need the Celtics to just completely forget about all that. Do not make this a trifecta. Do not make this a pattern, and you have got to show out, or else the media is going to have a field day. And you definitely don't want to give the Pacers any more momentum than they already have. So here are my 3 keys to victory to prevent the Celtics from going down and tying it 1-1. Number 1, you have got to work on the defense inside the 3-point line and, of course, outside the 3-point line. I just need to see all-around better D here from the Boston Celtics because the Indiana Pacers are going to do one thing. They're going to score the basketball. They are number 1 in the NBA in points per game. And this stat blew me away. Indiana shot 66% from the field at the end of regulation. And they attacked on all 3 levels without any hesitation. In transition, whether they were running the offense, whether it was down to the wire on the shot clock buzzer, whether or not it was 20 seconds left in the shot clock, the Pacers found a way to score. They had their most success coming from less than 10 feet, where they shot 72% effective field goal percentage. Look at this shot chart here for the Pacers in Game 1. I mean, they have open season from the mid-range. And I get it. You don't have 7'3" Tingus Pingus in the paint, which means you got to put a little bit more defense there down low in the paint. But I'm talking about they dominated at the wing. They dominated at the elbow. Al Horford was barbecue chicken when he had to defend a little bit outside that paint. That cannot happen again. This is the best mid-range shooting team in the NBA, and they absolutely showed it here in Game 1. Celtics will have to adjust. But thankfully, you've got 2 NBA all-defensive second-team candidates on your team, and Jrue Holiday versus Tyrese Halliburton has become my favorite matchup this entire postseason. We've known Holiday can be a huge defensive asset. I love what producer Smitty had to say in our instant reactions last night. That's a video on our channel right now. Is that Jrue Holiday, he's a Marcus Smart upgrade. And here's why. Here's what he did against Tyrese Halliburton, who's a phenomenal guard here in the NBA. There was about 5 minutes of matchup between the two. 27 possessions. Halliburton went 0 for 3 from the field with 2 turnovers when Jrue Holiday was guarding him. Not to mention, that picture I showed earlier was a pivotal point here for Jrue Holiday, who was guarding Tyrese Halliburton, forced a turnover in overtime, which was a momentum shifter. I didn't see Halliburton step up once after that happened. He clamped him up. I love Holiday on Tyrese Halliburton. Not to mention, Hallie knows now who he's dealing with going into game 2. He said Jrue Holiday is the best defender in the NBA. Whether that's a cop-out because you want to say, hey, look, I'm getting clamped up by the best guy in the NBA, or he truly means it, which I do think he does. Jrue Holiday is making his presence known on both sides of the ball. I need to see that continue throughout this series. But first and foremost, I need Celtic Nation to go on ahead and show Holiday some love. You know to spam your happy holidays. That's what we say every time Holiday makes a big play here for the Celtics. Spam that down below while I tell you guys the number 3 key to victory against the Indiana Pacers is your fourth quarter scoring. We have known that the Boston Celtics tend to dip a little bit low here in the second quarter. They start to come out in the third quarter a little bit slow, but the fourth quarter was something I'd never really noticed until last night, was the lack of scoring in the fourth quarter at such a pivotal time, which personally I think you could have avoided overtime in several parts of that ball game. But specifically in the fourth quarter, Tatum went 2 for 7 in the fourth quarter, including a wide open 3 that he just completely missed that could have taken the Boston Celtics to lead with 36 seconds left to go. Boston went over 3 minutes without scoring in a tight ball game in the fourth quarter with the Indiana Pacers. That cannot fly. They had no points from 7:29 to 4:14 in the fourth quarter when Derek White finally broke that incredibly horrible run. This is what you've got to work on. You have got to figure out how to find a way to score. This is what scares me. This will either end up in a Jayson Tatum ISO or will end up in somebody chucking up a 3 because they have no shot. You have got to work better at finding a spot to make a basket from, especially in the fourth quarter in game 2. But with that being said, I want you guys to go on ahead and get your crystal ball out. Predict your score for Celtics versus Pacers. Coming up here on Thursday, of course, we are going to be live for that game as well. I want to see in the comment section who has the best prediction for game 2. So go on ahead and comment that down below. While you guys are at it, be sure to hit that sub button for me. That way you guys can come join us tomorrow on our live stream. You can only comment if you're subscribed, and I want to talk to everybody. All you guys got to do, hit that sub button for me.